So today we're going to look at how to create something called the walk cycle. And that's just the cycle of the swinging arms and the stepping legs. There's multiple ways to do this. I'm actually going to create tutorials for two ways. The way that we're going to demonstrate in this video is creating paths and shape layers in After Effects and animating those. Now, the other way to do it is to draw everything in Illustrator and only animate the Illustrator layers. There are pros and cons to each. This one is really advantageous because it will just teach you how to deal with animated paths in general, right? So you could use this to animate any paths, whether or not it has to do with making a character walk or if it's just motion graphics. So this is just a preview here. So this is what we're going to do. Okay, so we have this person and he's walking, and pay attention to kind of what a walk cycle really looks like. I'll start with this back leg. So keep your eye on the back leg. You can see it's kind of a curved shape. The knee comes up, it kind of straightens out, and then it slides back, right? So back is curved, takes a knee, comes up, starts to straighten out, and then it slides back. Okay, and the arms are just kind of swinging. No big deal. Okay, so that's what we're going to create now. Just got a project ready to go. It's really similar. There's nothing really happening here. All I've created is a shape layer, and on that shape layer is this gradient background. My composition settings are 8 second long, 1920 by 1080, frame rate is 60. Okay, you don't need to use 60, but if I use that, I'm going to smooth out the motion, which will make it like easier to see every single step of the animation. So that's why I've gone with that. Okay, let's take a look at our drawing. Okay, so we have a drawing of this character here. And, you know, if we were animating this person using the Illustrator layers for everything, you know, this is kind of how it has to be drawn. Every little thing that you want to move has to be on its own layer, all right? And you need front and back. Now for our purposes today, because we're gonna animate the arms and legs in After Effects, I'm only gonna use the Illustrator drawing of the body and the head, okay? So let's just put all this back together. And I'm gonna drag this file in. Drag it in. The import kind will be composition. And I'm just going to leave the footage dimensions as document size. Okay. So what I want to do is look at the layers, look at the president layers, and get the body, and get the neck, and get the head, and drag those into my composition. Okay, if you use a different composition size, then, you know, maybe it doesn't fit so perfectly, but just take a minute and resize them. Okay? So as I'm working, I don't want to be accidentally selecting these, and I don't really want to do much work on them right now. So the first thing I'm going to do is lock them in. So they're locked. I will not accidentally select these. Okay? So let's start drawing the legs. First thing I need to do is draw out a shape layer. And if we remember our example, the starting of the animation, the leg was kind of like hooked backwards. We started moving the leg back to front. So I'm going to start by drawing it that way. One thing I want everyone to be sure of is that you don't have a layer selected, right? So see how this layer is selected? If I start drawing on it right now, I'll create a mask on that layer, which I do not want, right? We want to create a new layer. So make sure no layers are selected. If you do have a layer selected, you can just click in this blank area here and you'll deselect. All right, cool. So I'm going to make the legs red just so you can see them. Okay, but you can make the legs any color you want. So let's just say that that's kind of what it looks like. Start with that. That's what it looks like when this individual is finished taking a step backwards. All right. Cool. All right. Now I'm going to do a very simple rotation on this. So we're going to twirl down the shape layer, and we're going to find the transform tool, and we're going to say, I want to lock in the rotation right here at 0 seconds. So lock it in. Then let's say I want this whole step to take 1 second. I also want to lock it in here at 1 second. Why? Because if it's a cycle is something that stops where it ends. So I'm going to go all the way to 1 second, and I'm going to insert a new keyframe using this right here. This inserts a new keyframe. And it will just be keyframing in, locking in this exact position. Okay? So like there's no animation that's happening right now, right? It's like not animated, but that's okay. That's what we want. We want to make sure that it starts and ends in the same spot. There's other ways to do this. If you wanted to, you could copy a keyframe with Command or Control C, and then wherever you put your current time indicator, if you press Command or Control V, you'll paste that new one in, just like that. Okay, so right in the middle, which for me is 30F, right? Because I'm at 60 frames per second, so half a second is 30 frames. At this point, I want to rotate the leg to be, roughly stepped forward. Okay, we'll finesse the rest later, but we want it to be roughly stepped forward. Now you may notice that perhaps when you rotate your leg, maybe it does something weird. Maybe it does something like that, right? You want to make sure that this, which is the center of the layer, it's the layer's anchor point. You want to make sure that it's positioned here, where you want it to pivot, right at the top of the leg. So if you need to do that, the tool you need to get is this, the pan behind tool, all right? Just grab it, click and drag, and put it right there. So now your rotation will happen in the right spot, okay? One thing I'll warn people is because the pan behind tool kind of looks like the select tool, right? It's just this arrow that we're used to seeing. Try to remember that after you're using it, just go to like this tool, the select tool, or some other tool. Otherwise, you'll forget, and it can be really annoying. Okay, back on track. So I'm going back to 30 frames, which is half a second, and I'm rotating it so the leg is roughly stepped forward. All right, so what do we got here? Okay, that's almost a step. The other thing I'm going to do is trim this composition down to be 1 second, so that after it plays 1 second, it will loop back. All right, and the easiest way to do that right now is to move all the way forward until you see the end of the timeline, and you'll see this thing here. Just grab that and drag it all the way back to 1 second. And now your composition will automatically loop. All right. So at this point now, we just want to start adding some details. So should the knee bend? Should the leg straighten? Right? When you are mid-step, your knee is bent. And when your front foot is all the way extended, your knee is pretty straight. So let's add those details right now. To add them, we actually want to animate, not the layer, we want to animate the whole path. So when we use transform, we're actually animating the layer, right? And because the path is part of the layer, it moves with it. But we want to animate the path itself. So let's take this opportunity to rename our shape layer. I'm going to call it front leg. And then we'll go to the front leg, and we want to get to the path on that layer. So we want to see its contents. And one of those contents is shape 1, right? And shape 1 is created with a path. So there we go. Now we can select this path. And we can also keyframe this path. Once again, we know that this is a cycle. And so we know that at the beginning of the cycle, 0 seconds, we want to lock it in place. So let's do that. We also know that at the end of the cycle, 1 second, we also want to lock this in place. So let's move the timeline to 1 second, and we'll insert another keyframe. So now it's locked in place. Okay. So again, you shouldn't see anything happening here. It should look the same. Now we want to add details. So we want to start thinking about, when should this leg be fully extended? When should the knee be bent? All those things, we're going to add them in now. So halfway through the cycle is roughly when the leg should be fully extended, right? Because that's when you're stretching your knees out or stretching your foot out and straightening your knee. So I will move up ahead to 30 frames, which is roughly halfway. And this is what kind of some people have a lot of trouble with. Selecting an individual anchor point in After Effects. Now, they're actually called vertices in After Effects because the anchor point refers to, as you know, this thing here, right? That's the anchor point. So we call them vertices when we use After Effects. Okay, so it's a little confusing, but let's talk about how to select them. So if you have the path selected, like where it says path, P-A-F, P-A-T-H, okay, that says path. Okay, if you have this one selected, you will automatically select both or all anchor points on the path. Okay, that's just how it works. Which means if you only want to select one, you have to do something like hold down shift and click, and that will deselect it, right? So now only one is selected. Or you can click and drag and use a lasso. That will let you select one and move only one. But an easier way is to, instead of selecting the path, the lower path, you want to only select path 1. Okay, so if I just click path 1 right now, it's not going to work. You want to make sure you deselect the whole thing. So click anywhere. I clicked on shape 1. Now click on path 1 and look, no points are selected. So now if I grab one, it will move just that one path. Okay? And it will pull up the anchors so I can kind of start to straighten the leg out a bit. And there you go. So keep in mind that a lot of people have trouble with this. All right? So at 30 frames, right, select it, straighten the leg out, maybe even make it a little bit longer, pull it down a bit. Another thing you can do is select the pen tool. And if you hold down Option, that will also let you pull out anchors. Okay? But you always want to make sure, if you're having trouble selecting a path by clicking somewhere on the canvas, just make sure it looks like this. Only the path is selected. Not this, not this, not this, not shape 1, not the path, not the layer, this. Path and a number. That's how you want to select it, okay? All right, cool. So here we go. So we got, okay, this isn't really working. Why isn't this really working? Because from here to here, the knee at some point should be kind of like lifted, right? So I'm gonna Make sure only path 1 is selected, nothing else. I'm going to move this up. I'm going to make the knee a little bit more bent. We'll see what that looks like. Okay, it's kind of creepy, but this guy is creepy. So maybe maybe like this needs to be a little bit more, like the foot needs to be more like flat with the ground. So maybe this could even be more straight. And then this needs to be, so what I'll do now is just kind of move around, and I'm going to run into a problem here. Hopefully people can see why. At some point I accidentally selected both anchor points. So when I try to move this, the whole leg's going to go away. So my options are hold down Shift and deselect the top one, or click and drag and select only the bottom one. All right, so I'm happy with this. This leg is good to me. Okay. Yeah, this leg is good to me. I'm gonna give him a shoe. So how can I give him a shoe? Well, I'm gonna use trim paths, and I'm gonna duplicate this path, and then make a black path for like his black dress shoes, and trim the path all the way down so it's only on the foot. Okay? So I'm gonna duplicate front leg. I'm gonna rename it front shoe. And then I'm going to change the color. Easiest way to change the color is going to be by looking at the contents, finding shape 1, finding stroke 1. Okay, I'm not going to mess around with what's going on up here. I'm just going to do it right here. And I'm going to make it black. Okay, or maybe we'll give him pink shoes. Let's give him pink shoes. All right, cool. Now remember trim paths. That's when you can like change how much of a path has been stroked, I guess, or drawn. You get it right here with the add. So I'll add that. Trim paths. Now I want to see the details of this. And I'm just going to change the end point. Actually, I'm going to change the start point right down to there. All right. And you know what? I changed my mind. Pink is just hurting my eyes. Green shoes. He's Christmas. Okay, so in case it's not clear, the whole path is still there. It's just that I've only applied to a stroke to 20% of it. All right. Okay. Now we're gonna duplicate the front shoe and the front leg to create the back shoe and the back leg. So to do that, we're going to go select both. Selected front shoe and front leg. I'll go edit, duplicate. And you can see the way it's like put them in is not really what I want. I want these to be behind the front legs. And I'm going to rename them back shoe, back leg. Okay, back shoe, back leg. And when I play this, of course, nothing happens because the layers are just perfectly stacked on each other. What I want to do is I'm just going to shift this back, right? So I'm just grabbing the layers in the timeline here and just click and drag and shifting them, sliding them back. And I want to slide them all the way back right until the front leg is fully extended, right? So if it comes back, you've gone too far. So right before it comes back. Okay. The only problem is now we only have keyframes for that first half of the step, right? Because, well, let me expand this all and show you what I've done. So you can see this is how it was when we started, right? And when I slid it backwards, keep an eye on these keyframes, we lose them, right? We lose them. We push them right off. But it's really not that big of a deal because this is a cycle, which means that the first keyframe is the last keyframe, which means I should be able to copy this keyframe right here, which is now at 0 seconds. Command C. Come up to the end of my walk cycle, which is 1 second. Paste it in. And then we got to get all the other keyframes. So we also have rotation. Command C. Come ahead to 1 second. Command V. Paste it in. Right, that's what we want. And now we got to do the same for the back leg. So I want to copy the first keyframe at 0 seconds. Paste it back in at 1 second. Copy the rotation keyframe. Paste it back in at 1 second. Okay. All right. One thing I will also do is let's just change the color of the back leg. Let's make it darker. We'll also make the back shoe darker. Cool. All right, cool. So there you go. So that's that. Let's get the body and put it on top. So, or maybe it's easier to move these underneath. And there we go. So they're a little, they might be a little bit short, you know. Let's get some arms on here. Okay, these are going to be so easy now that you've already done the legs. Arms are going to be real easy. So we need a new layer. Remember, if we need a new shape layer, you cannot have any layers in here selected. And just like before, I'm going to draw the arm like on its backstroke, so to speak. I'm going to start it here because it's a cycle, right? It's a cycle. And I want like a shoulder here. So let's see if we can't get rounded caps on here. Contents, shape 1. Stroke. Okay, we want to edit the stroke. And we want line cap to be round. There we go. Right, that's a little bit more arm looking. Okay. All right, and we'll get something. I'm going to keep them red just so they're visible. Maybe I'll make them a little thinner. Cool. Now let's just do everything all over again. Okay. We want to change this, the anchor point, right? Because when we rotate this, we don't want to be rotating like that. We want to rotate on the shoulder. So go get your pan behind tool, aka the anchor point tool. Just click and drag, put it on the shoulder. Okay. So let's go back to 0 seconds. Don't forget to lock in the rotation. Swing it forward. Come back to 1 second. Swing it back. All right. Now we'll do the back arm. And once again, let's rename the layer to front arm. Duplicate it. I pressed Command D. I'll rename it back arm. I'll move it back to the layer stack. And once again, we don't see it. Well, why don't we see it? Because it's perfectly aligned with the other arm. So let's just do what we did last time. grab the layer and slide it forward. There we go. Perfect. Expand it. Copy that keyframe, the 0-second keyframe. Come forward. Okay, that's working. And then we'll come all the way to the end of our cycle and paste that keyframe back in. All right. Now you can get a little bit more advanced. Suppose you wanted to sort of make it so that, you know, when you walk, you have a gait, right? So when one foot is on the ground, maybe that causes you to kind of go up a bit in height. So we could, you know, do a slight movement of the body. So right now the body should be low, and then as your straight leg is pushing you up, maybe the body goes a bit higher. So let's experiment with that. Go to the body layer and unlock it. And at the start of the walk cycle, lock in the position. And then move forward to where the one leg is perfectly straight. In this case, it's the back leg. And let's just move the character. I'm going to use the arrow keys. And I'm going to move the body up a bit. And then I'm going to go to where no leg is straight. All the legs are fully extended. And I'm going to move the body back down. Then I'm going to go back to where one leg is fully straight. Move the body up. Then let's go to the end of the cycle. Move the body back down. Now, I think that's probably too much movement. So in order to change that, I'll just click right on I'll move the current time indicator right over the keyframe. And just move it down so it's not quite so much. There we go. It was just a little much. Whoop. Okay, now you'll notice the head is not moving with the body, but that's no big deal. We can just make the head copy the body's movement using the pick whip. Right, so I'll click this. So head layer, select the pick, or unlock it first. Select the pick whip, click it onto the body. Now the head will move with it. I just realized the head is above the neck. There we go. Or sorry, the head was behind the neck. And there we go. Okay. So the main things are making sure you are able to edit shape layers and making sure you're able to move keyframes around confidently. And hopefully by the time you are able to execute this, you'll be able to do that. And thanks for watching.